Tweets from President Trump may actually come back to haunt him.
Fox 5 legal analyst Wendy Patrick joining us now to explain all of this. Wendy, good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, the question of how tweets can be used in court, people are trying to figure that out now, but yet last week during the hearings, when that tweet happened in real time, Adam Schiff mentioned, is this obstruction, is this intimidation of a witness in real time? Explain all of this to us.
Well, one of the things we see every day on national television is people stating legal conclusions. So you could never do that in a real courtroom. You would have to talk about evidence, you had to talk about admissible evidence, and that's of course why we have both legal and evidentiary guidelines determining what kinds of information makes it into the public record to begin with. So tossing around legal conclusions on the news doesn't make it so. But there's nothing wrong with looking at certain conduct and then comparing it to the elements of whatever criminal activity you want to make it fit into to see if you can find those elements. So, you know, political processes, these are not legal proceedings. And one of the things that we learn when people are live tweeting, as we all do during these proceedings, is that it's just personal opinion. That's what Twitter is. It's a public forum. So whether or not the president was, and I'm sure he's going to be doing the same thing today, tweeting his way through the testimony does not necessarily make it a crime or not a crime. It's just something for us to be discussing.
But could they ever be used against you later in the future?
And that, Shali, is the interesting question for everybody to remember.
Right.
Now, it's true that a Twitter feed is not testimony, but tweets can be statements. That's why I've said on the show before, think before you tweet.
Yes.
You are what you tweet. We could go on and on. If we can prove it's you, in other words, if they can be legally authenticated,
Sure.
those could be statements. And of course, hearsay is not your own statements if you're the defendant. So there are lots of different ways in which we really should be careful about what we put on social media. Twitter in particular. Facebook is more of a highlights reel. That's not really our entire life. Those are the highlights. Twitter is more of a court of public opinion. It's not a hot mic. We are posting there because these are things we want to say. So that is one of the, I think it's a great piece of advice. Publicly, because there is no reasonable expectation of privacy about what you post on your Twitter feed.
So let's talk about holding elected officials to a higher standard when it comes to Twitter, including the President of the United States. When his tweets, this was discussed early in the presidency, where those tweets are now almost an official record because it's coming from the president. So when Adam Schiff says that this is intimidation of a witness, even though it's not a legal court proceeding, how does that play a role into the impeachment hearings themselves?
Well, putting a gavel in Adam Schiff's hand doesn't make him a judge. And we all saw he had a terrible time keeping control of those proceedings. But be that as it may, he's making basically a statement that, you know, it's a statement of opinion, which he's entitled to make. But in terms of what the president does and says on Twitter, there's actually a court ruling that basically ordered the president to unblock followers even if he disagrees with their content because of the nature of his office made it a public forum. The fact that we actually had to litigate that goes to show you that Twitter really is something people are using for official channels. But the president knows this, his advisors know this, his advisors probably, you know, are just shaking their heads when he gets onto Twitter and starts posting whatever he does. But whether or not Adam Schiff decides to use what he perceives in a certain manner to be an article of impeachment, you know, that's up to the House.
But if everything's in the court of public opinion, maybe him saying that was also just to get that out there and get the idea out there for people watching. He knows this is not illegal, but he said it and that carried some weight. He put that out there in the world.
That's right, Raul. And that's exactly why he live tweets all day long. And that's one of the things that made these impeachment proceedings, it continues to make them interesting, is because they're sort of taking a page from the president's playbook in tossing these terms around enough to where they maybe are believable to some people. That's exactly what they accuse the president of doing. So it's a very interesting time to be having this discussion about the weight that our tweets carry. Let's still be careful. Let's still think before you tweet. So let's leave it at that.
Yep. Very, very important. Okay. Got to be worried about what we say. It's like you're putting it out there. I think for us being in the jobs we are, kind of think ahead. And when you're saying something, you have to think about what you say, be very careful about it. And that's how Twitter is, except everybody now has this forum.
That's right.
To publish and to get their thoughts out there. Oh, I love Twitter. Wendy Patrick, thank you so much. I appreciate it.